Hi, I'm Adam,
I'm Lance.
and welcome to our summary of learning.
Like, Mr. Williams, why do I have to blog? This is stupid. Can't I just write it out?
Well, Lance, there's many different benefits to you blogging. Now, first off, you're going to create a huge audience. It's not going to be just me looking at your work or, you reading your work. It's going to make your work more meaningful. So think about that when you're blogging.
Well, fine, but who's gonna read it anyway? Nobody.
Excellent question, Lance. And I'm about to answer that. Now, through the use of hashtags, which is generating buzzwords throughout your blog, people can now search hashtags to find like articles or like pieces that are similar in theme to what you're writing about. So not only are you generating an audience, me and you reading your work, but your work is now more prominent and it's become a part of a network of connectivity that other people can now access your writing. So your writing becomes more meaningful. Now, we can also move over to hyperlinking. With hyperlinking, you can now highlight a couple words in your blog and connect it to other articles that drive home the same point that you're trying to drive home. So backing up your point with other people's research. Really, really interesting. And then you can also go through here, and through the use of commenting, you can comment on your other classmates' works, other articles, and you're creating and generating a dialogue through that. So there you go, Lance. That doesn't really happen with pen and paper, does it most times?
Well, what we've learned as teachers is that we, in 21st century education, we need to enable students to develop an online learning network and their digital citizenship. So we, as facilitators of learning rather than deliverers of information, need to enable students to have an online presence, right?
Right, and on that, we need to teach them how to be positive digital citizens, using different networks in positive ways and creating positive social interpersonal relationships on the internet,
Right.
In which they'll be able to use to further their knowledge base and educational purposes.
But we did learn that students are going to resist this new way of learning, and so we have to come up with strategic ways in order for them to jump into it with both feet and have a positive outlook.
Exactly. So this shouldn't be a problem technically because kids are so technologically inclined and eager, but you are going to run into the odd kid that has that point of view that we just saw recently here. Mr. Pollard, there's a guy that's saying some really rude things to me online. What should I do?
Well, Adam, it sounds like you're being trolled. And an internet troll is someone who deliberately says something to irritate you, whether it makes sense or not. So my suggestion is to ignore it, or you can kind of have that conversation with this person back and forth. Likely not going to get you anywhere, but you might teach them a thing or two.
Sorry to bug you again, Mr. Pollard, but I noticed I'm reading Jenny's blog, and at the bottom there's a bunch of comments that are really derogatory towards her as a female. What should we do?
Well, Adam, it sounds like this is a prime example of misogyny online. Guys who think that they're better than the girls. So you've got one of two options. Number one, ignoring it, and hopefully it goes away. Or number two, kind of combat it. See if you can combat that person by having that conversation and stand up for Jenny.
Well, this guy's just a waste of time, so I don't think I'm going to respond, Mr. Pollard.
Yeah, part of what we learned is that women seem to be the bigger target for trolls online sometimes, and male misogynists are on there and they think that they know more and that women are stupid for some reason. So one of the things that we have to teach students is that this isn't right, trolling is not a good thing, and then there are different ways that we can approach it.
Such as ignoring them, which is probably the best way because they want a response and they're trying to get a rise out of someone. So the best thing, ignore it.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you just ignore it, is it actually going to go away? And are we actually going to be standing up for what's right? It's really important for us as teachers, we've learned, to develop or help students to develop their online citizenship through the use of things like social media, Twitter, blogging, Facebook, Snapchat, which is what my favorite one is nowadays because I actually figured out how to use it as a learning tool in my school.
Yeah, and on top of creating a citizenship, we're going to make sure that it is a positive digital citizenship. So they're not doing anything on there that they're going to regret having posted in, say, 5 to 10 years when they're looking for a job or trying to get into a university or something like that. So really, it's making kids hyper aware of what they're posting online, what the repercussions of that is, and how they could further their positive digital citizenship. It's really thinking before you're posting, writing, and commenting.
Responsibility, that's the key word.
Yes! So now we're going to talk about another subject entirely that we learned about, which is activism, and online activism or slacktivism. Now, we need to know whether this is a positive thing, a negative thing, go over why it would be bad, why it would be good.
I think people, going back to that McLean's article from class a few weeks ago was like, slacktivism is stupid, we don't want you to do it, blah, 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 because retweeting a hashtag is doing your part. And I agree, it's not really doing anything, but it is raising awareness for certain things. So, for example, I donated to the ALS challenge last year. I actually did the water thing, and I wouldn't have known to donate had it not been for online activism or slacktivism.
I did the same thing, and that's also buying a yellow bracelet, Livestrong bracelet. I've done a lot of retweeting of missing kids to spread awareness that there's a missing kid out in our community somewhere that needs to be found. So how does that not help?
Exactly. I think it does help. And for the fact that people saying that article that said slacktivism is dead, I completely agree. Slacktivism, sure, if you're not doing anything to actually actively do something, you're at least raising the awareness. So by retweeting something or posting something on Facebook of a missing child, you're actually helping the cause, I think.
Yeah, I think you're making society, actually our digital society, hyper aware of every cause that's going on in the world, especially when you're retweeting, liking, sharing, or commenting on a post like that. You are raising awareness. It might be one person, might be a couple, might be 100, who knows? But at least you're spreading that awareness to someone else, which I think is really important.
All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is the concept of open education. And Adam and I are both in the realm of educational administration through the master's program here at the U of R. And so it's really important for us to be educational leaders in our buildings. And so we see open education as an opportunity for our staff, whether it's teaching staff, support staff, or otherwise, can use online education to better themselves professionally.
For example, we had Dave Cormier come in and talk to us about MOOCs and open education and how it's becoming such a great movement. And it is important because there's a lot of people out there that want to educate themselves further but are unable to support themselves because they don't have the funding. And this is one of the great ways that we can do it is through open education and making some of those journals that aren't exactly open, that you have to pay for or you have to go to the university to receive, open.
So another thing that we want to talk about is, that concept of not showing a kid's face on Facebook. I don't want to be online, a kid might say. And so we as teachers have the responsibility to make sure that we don't take pictures and post them on Facebook or otherwise of our students because of legalities. However, a parent has that opportunity to decide. But if you think about it, it's kind of the same concept as baptizing a child before they're old enough to realize what religion is.
Yes.
Right? It's like, why do we think that we have the right to put a child's face on the internet if they, when they get older, decide, I don't want to be on the internet. I don't want to have an online presence.
Or they couldn't make that decision at that age particularly, right? When I think of my kids, hey, I'm guilty of doing this all the time. I have 2 little boys. I'm constantly putting pictures of them on Facebook and Instagram on my 2 accounts.
Not my kids!
They're my nephews. Well, thank you all for watching our summary of learning. It's been a crazy semester, and we hope you enjoyed all our podcasts and our vlogs. Until next time, take care. Sincerely, from me and the musically talented Lance Pollard Jr.